Guess what, golfers? Vegas isn't just casinos and pool parties. In fact, there are 50 golf courses within a 15-mile radius of the Strip, all boasting beautiful desert oasis landscapes. So, if you're looking for a break from the action, consider hitting the links. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
We welcome you to hour number 2 live right here on this Tuesday morning on the early line on SportsGrid. He is Donnie, right side. I am Ben Stevens. On this Tuesday, mini camp starting around the National Football League, deeper into that off-season calendar. And, of course, DRS, whether it's OTAs, whether it's mini camp, heck, especially when we get to training camp in just about a month and a half, it's often not about who is there because all that is expected. It's about who might be absent and the significance of those absences around minicamp. There is much to discuss today with a focus on the defensive side of the football. And in one division, first and foremost, that would be the AFC North. Later on in this second hour, we'll get you set for game number 3 of the NBA Finals for the first time in Indianapolis in 2.5 decades. That's tomorrow night between the Pacers and the Thunder. CP, the Fanchise, expected to join us later on in this second hour to talk about the New York Knicks and the outlook the remainder of this summer for New York. New head coach, maybe some moving pieces and parts of this Knicks squad. And then the NHL's Pete Jensen will join us later on in this second hour to recap game number 3 of the Cup final last night in Sunrise and a dominant performance out of the Florida Panthers. Are the Panthers very, very much on track to go back-to-back as a Stanley Cup champ? Pete will have the answer.
I mean, certainly he will have that answer because we're going to need that answer to see if the Edmonton Oilers can get back into that series here and some of the changes that they might have to make. But also understand this. Once again, we are going to talk some NFL football and getting ready for it. It's OTAs. It's not mandatory. They're mandatory now, but if you don't want to show up, you don't have to, but you can get fined. And some guys trying to get contracts out here, which we're going to bring up, which includes the same division, a couple of high-priced veteran outside/defensive end pass rushers here want their money, Ben, and if they ain't getting their money, they're holding out for that money.
Yeah, DRS, that is the story right now as we begin. As we told you in the opening hour, big news yesterday out of Cincinnati the day prior to the Bengals all reporting for mandatory minicamp. And just to make that distinction, mandatory minicamp with an excused absence, you are fined, or you could be fined for missing out, different than voluntary OTAs. But again, if you're not there, there's generally a reason for it. Well, a guy who will not be there as he is no longer a part of the organization, Jermaine Pratt, released by Cincy yesterday. One of their defensive captains, you see the C on his chest, right under that right shoulder pad. He was also the Bengals' leading tackler, 143 total tackles a season ago. That was top 10 around the National Football League. For an atrocious defensive unit, DRS, why in the world would you want to get rid of your leading tackler, who, like a guy we will discuss in just a moment, Trey Hendrickson, also requested a trade earlier this offseason. No trade partner was found. Jermaine Pratt cut yesterday by the Bengals. I don't know if anybody's left on that defensive side of the football.
Which includes the defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, who many people liked here until it said, look, man, I don't have much, toys to work with over here on my defensive side. So maybe he winds up in Indianapolis and follows him along with that path. But having said that about the Bengals, it's basically what Wilson as your one linebacker that's back. And a lot of people, we don't know how they can perform. And maybe this is by design, but I don't know what design is like. Hey, man, let's just load up on offense and give nothing to our defense. Because understand this. Most of the players that they brought back for high price, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Like Joe Burrow played last year. Jamar Chase played last year. T. Higgins played last year. And a lot more players on that defense played last year. Now the defense is gone. And Ben, they still didn't make the playoffs last year. So what do we expect this year for them to throw for 5,500 yards with their quarterback and multiple 1,500-yard receivers in their wide receiver room and then say, well, our defense just keep us close and under 30 points for the other team? I don't know what's going on in that defense.
Yeah, neither do I, DRS. New defensive coordinator in Cincinnati is Al Golden, who was the defensive coordinator last year at Notre Dame. Of course, with the 17th pick in that opening round, the Bengals did draft Shamar Stewart, the talented edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Is he at mandatory minicamp? No, he hasn't signed his rookie deal yet because of some weird contingencies in terms of guaranteed money for the Bengals. And new this morning, DRS, from NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, Trey Hendrickson, as we could have expected, but not expected to report to minicamp for the Bengals, as Hendrickson and his reps have not made any progress on a new deal with Cincinnati, and the Bengals have not really seemed all that interested in honoring Hendrickson's trade request to move him somewhere else. This is a guy in Trey Hendrickson who has stacked up 17 and a half sacks in back-to-back seasons. Last year, led the NFL in sacks, finished runner-up in Defensive Player of the Year, and the Bengals are like, yeah, buddy, we're not so sure if you're a part of our future. Again, this is why Donnie and I have bemoaned the Bengals' atrocious front office for the last year plus. You can pay Jamar Chase. You can pay T. Higgins. You can make them the highest paid non-quarterbacks in NFL history. That's Chase. Or the highest paid secondary wide receiver we have ever seen in the NFL. That's fine. Had you done that last year, you have financial freedom and flexibility to also pay Trey Hendrickson and Jermaine Pratt and improve on the worst defense, or one of the worst defenses we saw in the NFL a season ago. And even if they were mediocre at the tail end of last season, DRS, they were not nearly good enough to at least allow the Bengals to become a playoff team, which is why there are so many questions on Cincy's outlook entering 2025.
Yeah, and we always like to poke fun at the front office because that's what it leads to. And I always look at teams like that and say, boy, it's just a shame that you have a family ownership group in here that's just about the bottom line, and we'll see what happens on the football field. Generally, do they want to win? They probably do, but it's a bigger win to see that bank account absolutely inflated as opposed to deflated when you have to sign your better players. And understand this, like the devious part of me is like, you know what? They love this on the Bengals. You're telling me I have a high-priced veteran that's going to sit out and miss this weekend, and I can find him $100,000 for this. They're popping champagne bottles and saying, like, they hope like Jamar Chase sits out even though he just signed the contract. Boy, you know how much money? The $100,000 into my back pocket here because this guy wants to hold out. Of course, I'm going to make these guys' lives as miserable as possible in hoping they don't show up at this point. This should have been taken care of before the draft. You want to pay him, you don't want to pay him, but if you don't want to pay him, you can trade him, and you can use that trade draft capital here on draft night here and get yourself another defensive end to sort of replace him. So now you're heading into camp, and if you move him now, let's just say for a second-round pick, You can't use it this year. You got to wait till next year's draft. It doesn't help your football team. So they better be operating under the premises, and we are going to sign him. We just want a better deal. Or the one I always like is, now how much does he make next year? Let's just say $17 million. Well, if he holds out, we can take $1 million a week from him. I could put him in my back pocket. That's what the Brown family's thinking, instead of saying, how do I get this guy on the football field so we can actually have a semblance of a defense?
Yeah, and a semblance of a defense might even be a stretch at this moment, DRS, for Cincinnati. By the way, TJ Watt is not reporting to mandatory minicamp for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The guy that led the NFL in sacks the year prior in 2023 with 19 and finished Defensive Player of the Year runner-up, as he is looking for a new contract extension as well. Here's the Bengals' outlook for 2025, DRS. 9.5 the win total on Cincinnati. They are favored to make the playoffs at -176. Second best price to win the AFC North. Fourth best number behind that big three of Baltimore, Buffalo, and KC to win the AFC Championship. And an 18-1 price on Cincy to win a Super Bowl. There should be some buy-in prices on the Bengals, but not if you don't have a defense. We'll discuss the Bengals a little bit further on the other side of the break before we turn our attention to the association. Up next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that rim. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
Just a little flyer, couple of thoughts.
18.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune in to Game Time Decisions weekdays on SportsGrid.
Did you know sportsbooks tend to draw up tighter bet lines for events that get even more bettors, like championship games or major matchups? My tip, try betting on less popular sports. You might have a better shot at beating those odds. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
Right before the break, we showed you the odds outlook for the Cincinnati Bengals entering the 2025 NFL season. DRS, I want to buy in on the Bengals. Unlike the other two teams that have a shorter price than Kansas City to win the AFC Championship, Joe Burrow and the Bengals are the only quarterback and team tandem that have actually taken down Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City and represented the AFC in a Super Bowl since Mahomes became the starter, or at least in the last half decade. I want to buy into the Bengals. Should I? On any of those numbers, knowing all of the concerns on the defensive side of the ball and who might even be playing defense for Cincy in 2025.
That's the hard part. They'll be competitive. Like you see the win total, it's 10 games. You go 10-7, you're probably going to make the playoffs. We'll talk about that certainly just a little bit later in the show as well. But from a offensive standpoint, they're going to move the football. They have one of the best offenses in the league, not because I love their offensive line or their play caller here. I just love the fact that Joe Burrow's a great quarterback, has two dynamic wide receivers on the outside. And understand this, the rule of thumb for the Cincinnati Bengals isn't let's just play good offense, let's slow the game down, and let's lean on our defense like some teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, let's just say we'll try to do here in 2025. This is a team that's going to make, all right, win the coin toss. We lost it. Okay, guys, let's huddle up here. We're down 7-0. Wait, the game didn't. Yep, we're down 7-0. We're going to get scored in here. We got to counter right away. Like, we don't know exactly how the defense is going to work out, but it wasn't a good defense, and it's losing more pieces. And if you lose Trey Hendrickson, what do you absolutely have on defense with a rookie coming in? I want to say it's not fair to call Al Golden a rookie. He's been around the block multiple times, but a new coordinator saying, I don't have much firepower here to work with. What am I supposed to do here at this point? So from me saying, can they do damage? No. Can they win games? Yes. But we know as well as, that everybody else, when you get to some of these games against elite offenses and good football teams, you can't just say, we'll win this 35-34. That doesn't work, particularly in the playoffs as well.
Especially if that is going to be your margin, right? If that is going to be your expectation. We need to score 35 points, maybe into the 40s each and every game to beat teams that are above 500 or at least solid football teams. That is not a recipe that I enjoy. If they were to figure out the defensive side of the ball, maybe I could buy in on that plus 900 price. As of this moment, DRS, I just can't. Again, I made this point numerous times already in this offseason. You want to pick the Bills and the Ravens to finally get past Mahomes and the Chiefs, be my guest. The fact they are priced shorter than Kansas City still absolutely baffles me as the only quarterback on that list who is currently active in the NFL, who has bested Patrick Mahomes in a game of significance, is Joe Burrow.
And look, that's sometimes all you need, because you just have to reach back into that toolbox and say, hey, have we ever done this before? Yes, we have. Have we won at big spots in Kansas City? Yes, we have. Did we come within, basically 3 to 4 minutes of winning a Super Bowl? Yes, we have. It's just a shame, because how much better would it be looking at this team? Like, you love Joe Burrow. We all do. We love those two wide receivers. We love this offense.
Love them.
Imagine if you said, hey, man, that defense is really good. Like a couple of years ago, we were talking about the Bengals, like, hey, Lou Anarumo is probably going to be a head coach because of how well he's doing with that defense. And then you say, well, Lou, I guess it was your fault. And Al Golden, congratulations. We're going to give you less to work with than possibly what we just saw with Lou, who's out of town here now with Indianapolis Colts. So from my money, I like the Bengals from a week-to-week betting perspective. Am I going to take them on the sides? Not necessarily, but I can't wait to see what Joe Burrow's. Was it start at 290.5 as his prop? Does it start at 2.5 touchdown passes? Does Jamar Chase start at 95.5 yards each and every week? Because those are the expectations being set, where we can't come into a game and say, okay, we'll be fine. If we get to 19 points, our defense will hold them. No. You have to be nuclear the entire football game from the way it looks of what that defense could be if Trey Hendrickson doesn't show up to regular season game number 1.
The Bengals allowed 25.5 points per game a season ago, even with allowing fewer than 3 touchdowns on average, 3 scores on average in their final 3 weeks. They were 25.5 points per game allowed. That was 7th worst around the National Football League, 8th worst as a total defense that allowed nearly 350 yards per game. Those are not good numbers. Even if they get mediocre, even if they get middle of the pack in the NFL in year number 1 under Al Golden, maybe I could buy back in, but not at this time. All right, DRS, the hard and quick transition to the NBA Finals. Game number 3 is tomorrow in Indianapolis inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Thunder equalize with a 16-point win in game number 2, 123-107. OKC, a minus 550 favorite now to win that Larry O'Brien trophy and be crowned an NBA champion for the first time in their 17 years in Oklahoma City. DRS first 2 games. Indiana steals game number 1 in historic comeback fashion. OKC shows its resolve in game number 2. To you so far, DRS, what has been the biggest storyline of the 2025 NBA Finals?
The fact that we're 1-1 heading back to Indiana, I think that's the key ingredient. The expectations based on the odds makers and most people's opinion was this wasn't going to be a very competitive series. It should be 2-0, and maybe the Pacers can make a series out of it by winning 1 of 2 games on their home floor to at least get us to a game number 5. Now, all of a sudden, we automatically have a game number 5 because Indiana did win one of those first 2 games on the road, and it was game number 1. You understand this from a viewing perspective. Once we get to that basketball game, and let's just say it's the Oklahoma City Thunder winning that game, going up 2-1 in that series. The series is de facto over at this point. I still think the Thunder win this series, even if the Indiana Pacers win game number 3, because then I do think that Oklahoma City will come back and win game number 4. Then it's a short sprint, best of 3, 2 games in Oklahoma City's building. But just from the thought process of the public and buying into it, we really want to see the Indiana Pacers put up a fight. And from those first 2 games, Ben, double-digit spreads effectively in games 1 and games number 2. Game number 3, you're now seeing the 5s. But understand this. Those 4s that were opening up here in New Jersey have quickly turned to 5s and other outlets at 5.5. The expectation still, though, even though the spread is in half, that it's supposed to be a victory for OKC.
And we talked about it yesterday, DRS. The early money, 96% of the money on those spread bets, backing OKC as a 4.5 point favorite. Move the line up to 5 for game number 3 tomorrow night inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse. But now it's only about 85% of the money on the spread backing OKC. Here are those series odds for the NBA Finals. Again, the Thunder minus 550 outright to win that Larry O'Brien trophy. Maybe here are not the, okay, that's the correct score odds. We'll get to it in just a matter of moments. I'm going to ask you, DRS, for your best bet for the remainder of the NBA Finals. Next.
Falcons are actually relieved that he's kind of not there to create more of a distraction. Look, I mean, I said it the day it happened. It was one of the stupider decisions I've ever seen by a professional NFL franchise to sign a quarterback to a $180 million contract and then draft his replacement exactly 5 weeks later. This was a terrible organizational decision by the Falcons. Now, they're going to spin this, and this is what's annoying about the Falcons and their PR staff. They're going to spin this as if this is the plan we had all along. This is the plan that when, Kirk Cousins either got hurt or didn't play well or got too old, we were going to have Penix come in. And guess what? The new plan is now we're going to keep Kirk Cousins as a backup. So if Michael Penix gets hurt, we told you so. We were right for keeping him on the roster. We were smart for keeping him here. No, this whole thing has been an abject disaster.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high, but the action isn't just on the field.
He's rearranging that ring. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A little flyer, couple of 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play, every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It'll be interesting to see what the Knicks do, but the Knicks are at a point now where they don't have to blow it up. They may still do so, and they have a right to do so, but with trading the 4 first-round picks and the pick swap for Mikal Bridges, the Knicks don't have a lot of room in regards to actual picks to throw at people.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The NBA Finals returns to our lives tomorrow. Game number 3 in Indianapolis. A change of venue for the first time in this championship set. The Pacers will host an NBA Finals game for the first time since 2000. That was 25 years ago. The Thunder, DRS, a minus 550 outright favorite to win that NBA championship. You see the series spread. OKC laying a game and a half. Pretty chalky number to lay it at minus 152. But the most likely outcome in terms of the duration of this NBA Finals, only 5 games at plus 154. Now, for Oklahoma City to cover as a game and a half favorite in the series spread, they would have to win in 6 games at most. Now we go to the series correct score odds. For OKC to win in 5, that's plus 180. The Pacers still technically have the chance to win in 5 games. You see how long that expectation is here for Indiana. Their shortest number is plus 980 in 6. Every price on the Thunder to win an NBA championship, 5, 6, or 7 games is less than $3. So DRS, if you could make one wager right here, right now, ahead of game 3 in the NBA Finals on how the rest of this series plays out, what would it be?
Yep, it wouldn't be on a side, and if I did take a side, it would be Game 6, Pacers, plus 980. If I did take a side again, it would be Thunder, Game 6, plus 290. But instead of just hoping that one of those two gets there and it's plus money, why not just take Game number 6? It's a plus 198 right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. As I said again, I expected before this series started, maybe if one win came from the Indiana Pacers, it would actually come on their home court. They stole a game right now in OKC. So I still think they're going to win one game on their home court, which automatically gets you into a Game 6 scenario at that point, because from my end of it, I don't think it's going to be all right. It's 1-1. Indiana wins Game 3. Indiana wins Game number 4. Indiana goes in and wins Game number 5 in OKC. Hey, they're the NBA champions at this point. If they did that, that would be wild, crazily deserved, and I don't think anybody saw that one coming at that point. But for me, if we're 1-1 at home, Ben, I think we're going to be 1-1 here on the road, which means it's 2-2, which then means we have a winner that has to take place in Game number 3, which then gets us to Game number 4, which would be Game number 6. And away you go, and you cash in that ticket, because I do think the championship will be decided in Game 6. I do believe it's going to be the Thunder, but boy, that price point of plus 980. Let's just say Indiana stings them, right, in Game number 3. There's a good chance that they can win Game number 4. And then, of course, the kitchen sink game for OKC. And then, if you're Indiana, you can't lose Game number 6. You don't want to Game number 7. I think it sets up great for 6 games here, regardless of the winner, at close to a 2-1 price here at the FanDuel Sportsbook.
Over 5.5 games, by the way, in terms of the over-under total games of the NBA Finals, has some pretty hefty juice at minus 192. It's like the series spread and the series over-under expects this to see at least 6 games, but all of the outcomes in terms of the total distance or the team to win an NBA championship and in how many games is more so now leaning to the Thunder in 5, winning 4 straight after dropping game number 1. So, DRS, if you think we get to 6, let's focus on number 3. Tomorrow night in Indy, it's the Pacers hosting the Oklahoma City Thunder. OKC is a 5-point road favorite. We have already talked about where the betting public is starting to invest their money heavily backing the Thunder at this moment. Total standing at 228.5. DRS, if we are going to see at least 6 games in the 2025 NBA Finals, is tomorrow night in Game number 3 an absolute must-win for the Indiana Pacers at home?
It absolutely is. It really is, because you say, well, okay, it's still 2-1 at that point. They can win Game number 4. We get that. But you want to put the pressure back on OKC. OKC had the pressure in Game number 2. They handled that flawlessly. That was a wire-to-wire victory. Said, you know what? Okay, deep breaths. We're 1-1. Let's go handle our business in Indiana. Now you go into Indiana and say, okay, if Indiana can steal Game 3, all of that pressure. I mean, what a vice grip that would be understanding. You should have one more game in Indy before you even get back home, and you can't afford to go down 3-1. I don't care how good Oklahoma City is. I do think they're going to win the series, and I think they could still win the series if they lose Game number 3. I'm not going to think they can win this series, Ben, if they lose Games 3 and 4 and say, well, now you still got to win. That's still 3 straight victories you got to have over the Pacers. When the Pacers beat you the first 3 out of 4 games, you need that victory in Game number 3 for Indiana to keep the pressure back on OKC. Because if Indiana wins Game number 3, the series isn't over. Yeah. If Oklahoma City wins Game number 3, the series is over.
In DRS, we have already shared, right, how great the Thunder have been at home throughout this playoff run. There is no doubt about that. But OKC on the road has yet to cover throughout this postseason. The Thunder have not been nearly as good away from Oklahoma City in terms of how optimistic the odds are looking at OKC as of this moment. Other NBA news the rest of the summer next.
It'll be interesting to see what the Knicks do, but the Knicks are at a point now where they don't have to blow it up. They may still do so, and they have a right to do so, but with trading the 4 first-round picks and the pick swap for Mikal Bridges, the Knicks don't have a lot of room in regards to actual picks to throw at people.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you can't really, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks really got past that playoff dragon for them that really stood in their way. So for the New York Knicks to be the Celtics and then an outright favorite to win the Eastern Conference Finals, that's where the disappointment is.
The goalposts got moved, right? Because when you went into the Celtics series, a lot of Knicks fans said they weren't going to beat it. This, I'll say this is more unprecedented than the 99 run when they were the 8th seed.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Face. He's the new face. New face of what? The hell are you talking about? Like seriously. Oh, the new face of the NBA, Anthony. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, really? Guy's got 2 shots. You're the face of the NBA. Slow down. He's a good player. I've always thought the whole face of the NBA thing was comical. You want him to be the face of the NBA because you don't like it that all the other faces of the NBA aren't American.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Tuesday morning on the Early Line on SportsGrid as we get ready for game number 3 of the NBA Finals. That's not till tomorrow. It allows us some time to focus on the other NBA organizations and what the offseason holds, especially here in New York City this summer, and what an interesting offseason in the Big Apple it is going to be for the New York Knicks. Who better to break it down than CP the Fanchise, joining us here on this Tuesday, of course, holding down the fort for Knicks Fan TV and making sure that everybody is set for the coaching search this summer for the New York Knicks. CP, as always, we appreciate the time. It was great to talk to you during that historic playoff run for New York, and now a coaching search ahead this offseason for the Knicks as well.
Yeah, Ben and Donnie, good morning, man. It was absolutely fever pitch during the entire Knicks playoff run. Unfortunately, they fell short, just 2 games short of the NBA Finals. And then just when you thought you're thinking about the offseason and draft and free agency, they fired the coach the following 2 days after. So never a dull moment in the Knicks verse, that's for sure.
CP, exactly a week ago, we got the big bombshell news out of the Big Apple that Tom Thibodeau, after 5 seasons, and bringing the New York Knicks to a level they had not seen in 2.5 decades, was dismissed as head coach. There was no arguing the resume for what Tibbs was able to accomplish in his half-decade inside Madison Square Garden. So, CP, when you saw the news like the rest of us, ultimately your reaction, did you agree with the decision the Knicks front office made?
My reaction, guys, was I wasn't surprised, to be honest with you. This is something that I had been hearing for, rumblings throughout the season. And then after the Knicks Game 2 loss to the Pacers, I did mention on Knicks Fan TV that Coach Tibbs was going to be on thin ice. And I was not sure what his fate would be after they lost that series against the Indiana Pacers. And so once I heard it, disappointing that it did not work out in terms of him being able to take this team to the promised land. Certainly thankful because as that graphic showed, Tom Thibodeau brought the Knicks back from the dead, literally, with the success that he had in the 5 seasons. You have to tip your cap, Coach of the Year, playoffs 4 out of the last 5 seasons. And so it's super thankful to have a coach to bring this franchise back to life. But also looking at how this team played throughout the season, the disconnect on both ends at times, and with the roster that they had, I figured that it was time for the Knicks to make a move, and management, James Dolan, certainly felt that way, that Tom Thibodeau was not necessarily going to be the coach to take them to that championship level that this roster is capable of. And look, this is always the first domino to fall in sports. When you make the investment that the Knicks have made in this roster to make it to the pinnacle, the coach is the quickest and the easiest thing to change. And unfortunately, it cost Tom Thibodeau his job.
And also understanding where the Knicks are coming from, because there hasn't been a lot of winning in New York, and Thibodeau brought that back. But CP, what I can respect about a franchise saying, you know what, this still isn't good enough, because I think most Knicks fans, once you got to the Eastern Conference Finals, things changed. It was like, man, we're going to have to beat Cleveland, then we're going to have to beat, the Celtics, and then we'll see what happens in the finals. The path was pretty clear there. You get over the hump and you beat the Celtics, but then you lose to the Pacers. I don't actually mind this as it looks forward. And also as a fan, you can understand, next year you're looking at the Eastern Conference and saying, well, probably we're talking about the Celtics might be down, not only trading players, but injured in Jason Tatum. The Milwaukee Bucks are usually a factor. Down Damian Lillard, where are they at? So this is a monstrous all season for the New York Knicks. So let me ask you this question. We lose Thibodeau, who's a rock star head coach. We're hearing Jason Kidd, maybe mutual interest, but can you make that work here with not obviously the salary cap, but trading away some draft prospects to maybe get that done? What's in the future for the Knicks, and what do you think is best in the future for the Knicks?
Yeah, I'm with you in that you're going to have to take calculated risks. And that's what Leon Rose has been about since he's been here. And he's been measured. He hasn't been gung-ho in terms of mortgaging this franchise's future for immediate gains. They have had a prudent approach, and you're going to have to roll the dice in certain respects to get to that top level. And you're right, Donnie, when you look at next season, all things considered, you hope that they're healthy. And if they roll over, say, 85 to 90% of this roster, this is a top 3 team in the East. With Boston coming down, Milwaukee is going to come down. And so you have to figure it's going to be Indiana, the Knicks, the Cleveland Cavaliers in some sort of order in the preseason rankings. And so where they go from here, Jason Kidd is obviously the hot name right now. Both sides are interested from what we've heard in terms of Kidd and the New York Knicks. Is he that championship caliber coach to take the Knicks there? Time will tell. He did take the Dallas Mavericks there just last year with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. One thing we do know with Jason Kidd is that his relationship with Jalen Brunson is very strong. Jalen Brunson gives Jason Kidd a lot of credit for his growth and development as a player. Jason Kidd has that characteristic of a coach that is a player's coach. The relatability factor. I think that was where Tom Thibodeau was lacking. We did hear earlier this season a little bit of friction between him and Mikal Bridges. Some of the players, as a result of the exit interviews, were not quite happy with their roles under Tibbs. And so I think that's one of the biggest keys here why the Knicks are keying in on a Jason Kidd, to be a guy that can be a little bit more relatable to the players. But he's also going to have to show, if he is the coach, that from an X's and O's standpoint, that he can make these two big-headed monsters in terms of Brunson and Towns more compatible on both the offensive and defensive end. That's going to be a big challenge.
The context is necessary. The New York Knicks at a plus 350 price after the big splash trade for Karl Anthony Towns entered this past season with the second best number around the Eastern Conference. CP, we were debating earlier with the injury news to Darius Garland yesterday for the Cavaliers, the injury, of course, to Jason Tatum for the Celtics. If the Knicks get this head coaching hire correct, and it is the correct one, if it's not New York as at least the slight favorite to win the Eastern Conference crown entering 2025-26. So you mentioned Jason Kidd. What else are you hearing in CP, frankly, Who do you want to be at the forefront of this coaching cycle for the New York Knicks to get New York to that championship level they haven't been in the NBA Finals since 1999?
Well, hey, if the search is including head coaches that are already under contract, my first call is going down to South Beach in Miami, calling Mickey Arison and Pat Riley and saying, hey, how can we mend these fences that have been broken for the last 30, 40 years? But look, Eric Spoelstra is certainly a pipe dream. I am intrigued about Johnny Bryant, who was here in New York under Tom Thibodeau as the associate head coach, brought in by Leon Rose and Worldwide West. He was a hot coaching candidate. He did not get the Phoenix Suns job, but is Johnny Bryant with a veteran bench coach the way to go forward with the Knicks? You're also hearing names like, Mike Brown is available. Frank Vogel is available as well. The Knicks have stated that they are going to conduct an extensive search, but I think that's more so if the Jason Kidd pursuit falls through. But if it's not Kidd, I'd be intrigued with Johnny Bryant there as a young upstart coach for the New York Knicks.
See how much fun this is, CP? Look, we're in the off season for the Knicks after a devastating loss and so much opportunities to get better, which includes who's that coach is going to be. And also, it's a superstar-studded roster here for the Knicks, particularly in the starting five. But there are two players out there also that are getting a lot of media action here that are actually under contract but could be had in the way of a trade. That would be Giannis Antetokounmpo and Kevin Durant. For your money here, looking at that Knicks roster, do you expect a big shakeup or maybe just the status quo? And also, does a guy like Giannis fit onto that roster if you can make some of those changes?
Well, listen, Donnie, as you're looking at this Knicks team defensively, Giannis would absolutely be a great fit here. I just have a hard time seeing how the Knicks can compete with the rest of the NBA in terms of a substantive package that the Milwaukee Bucks would be happy with. With Kevin Durant, I look at the Spurs or even the Rockets as the favorites. I'd be very leery if I'm the Knicks to go after a guy like a Kevin Durant. He's 37 years old. You would have to pay him and deplete some of your depth. I just don't see a KD pursuit as being realistic for the Knicks. But, hey, if they can pull a rabbit out of a hat, as Leon Rose oftentimes can, I'd go after Giannis in a heartbeat. It's just, what type of package could they entice for the Milwaukee Bucks? And is it a 3 or 4 team trade? It gets a little bit tricky in that regard.
You see the Knicks there with a plus 340 price to maybe land Giannis this summer. We shall see the remainder of this offseason. CP, the Fanchise, joining us here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. CP, we appreciate the time always, man. More on TTL comes your way next.
Thanks.
It'll be interesting to see what the Knicks do, but the Knicks are at a point now where they don't have to blow it up. They may still do so, and they have a right to do so, but with trading the 4 first-round picks and the pick swap for Mikal Bridges, the Knicks don't have a lot of room in regards to actual picks to throw at people.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
No one is going to pick Indiana. No one's going to pick Indiana to make it close, honestly. Like, you could get tremendous odds if you pick OKC in 7.
I think that taking the series over 5.5 games, the last 2 NBA Finals series ended in 5. I think this one goes 6. I think the Thunder will get the job done, but I think the Pacers are just too strong of a team and too talented of a team and too deep of a team to lose in 5 or fewer games.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
The Knicks really got past that playoff dragon for them that really stood in their way. So for the New York Knicks to be the Celtics and then an outright favorite to win the Eastern Conference Finals, that's where the disappointment is.
The goalposts got moved, right? Because when you went into the Celtics series, a lot of Knicks fans said they weren't going to beat it. I'll say this is more unprecedented than the 99 run when they were the 8th seed.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Face. He's the new face. New face of what? The hell are you talking about? Like seriously. Oh, the new face of the NBA, Anthony. Yeah, okay. You know what I mean? Like, really? Guy's got 2 shots. You're the face of the NBA. Slow down. He's a good player. I've always thought the whole face of the NBA thing was comical. You want him to be the face of the NBA because you don't like it that all the other faces of the NBA aren't American.
Sports Rage tonight. only on SportsGrid.
In the Stanley Cup Final in 2025, the Florida Panthers, our reigning champs, now have a 2-1 series advantage after a decisive 6-1 victory in game number 3 last night in Sunrise. To break it all down and tell us about the remainder of this Cup Final and how he anticipates it plays out, the NHL's Pete Jensen joins us here on this Tuesday on the early line on SportsGrid. Pete, as always, we appreciate the time. Excited to look back at game number 3 last night in Sunrise.
Yeah, what's up, guys? I mean, how quickly things can change, right? The Oilers were locked into that double overtime game, leading the series 1-0 in game 2, fell short in that game with the Marchand winner, and then all of a sudden it seemed like the Panthers enacted their will mentally and physically on the Oilers. These teams have played each other many times over the past year or so, right, including these 2 Cup Final series. But last night just felt like something that shifted in the direction of the Florida Panthers, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, you see that 5-goal margin, Pete. The story of the series for the first 2 games in Edmonton, incredibly competitive and tightly contested. OT in both, 2 OTs in game number 2. Last night, not so much. You mentioned the Panthers enacted that will on Edmonton, both physically and mentally. How did the Panthers do that exactly in game number 3?
I mean, drawing penalties, getting the extracurricular activities going, 11 power plays in a single game for the Florida Panthers. That is undisciplined play, to put it very clearly, for the Edmonton Oilers. You saw some of these guys near the end of the game lose their cool a little bit, but really this was a combination of physicality and goal scoring in the clutch, like we've seen all postseason long from the Florida Panthers. Big hits, Aaron Ekblad knocking down McDavid. Luckily, McDavid seems like he's okay. He came back into the game, but that definitely set the tone when that happened. And then there was that play where Sam Bennett, the NHL's leading goal scorer this postseason and a pending free agent who is playing absolutely out of his mind right now, lays 2 hits, then goes the other way and scores a breakaway goal to kind of seal the deal pretty much in that game. So he has been an absolute wrecking ball in this series, and with 4 goals in 3 games, I mean, who's stopping Sam Bennett right now? I don't think even McDavid and Draisaitl are.
Pete, we'll get to the series prices here in just a moment, but what changed in your mind? Like game number 1, overtime. Game number 2, overtime. Game number 3, an absolute blowout. Just a change of venue, or was just like Brad Marchand doing what he does, scores in the first minute, and away you went in an absolutely energized environment. But what were your biggest takeaways from the first 2 games into game number 3, and what happened there?
Yeah, I think that, you combine the home ice advantage with Florida. They've been a good home team this postseason. They've responded well from adversity. Remember, they trailed 2-0 in the series against the Maple Leafs, and then they ended up winning both home games and just completely setting the record straight there. And you saw that here in Game 3 with the power play goals, scored 3 power play goals in the game. That's how the avalanche of a momentum shift can happen in hockey, right? You get energized by scoring the first goal early on. You get power play opportunities. You start, getting into those high danger areas that the Panthers have been so dominant in this postseason, and shooting a high percentage, over 30% from high danger areas. I mean, that's just a bad recipe for the Oilers. So I think that is how it has turned very quickly. I wouldn't rule out Edmonton, though. Big picture, they have 2 days off here, to look at the waves and try to get the things back on track here. Mm-hmm. Remember, they were down 3-0 in the series last year after dropping Game 3 at home. So you can't rule out that team just yet. But boy, do they have to figure out how to play more disciplined hockey in Game 4 to have a chance to get this game deep, maybe to overtime again. I wouldn't be surprised to see another overtime game in this series, even if Edmonton loses it.
And in that 4th game in last year's Cup Final, it was the Oilers scoring 8 goals against playoff Bob Sergei Bobrovsky. So, Pete, you mentioned this series. Don't count out the Oilers just yet, but the odds based on a 5-goal margin and 2 straight wins for our reigning champs looking pretty good for Florida to go back-to-back. Minus 265. Now that updated outright number for the Panthers to hoist the cup once again. Let's start with the Oilers. If we are not going to count them out at this exact moment, what is the biggest adjustment that Edmonton needs to make entering Game 4 tomorrow, on Thursday night?
I mean, they might have the problem is right now Florida has 3 dominant lines. You get the Barkov line, the Bennett line, and then the Marchand line with Anton Lindell and Luosterainen. I don't see that level of depth from the Oilers based on the current lineup construction. So maybe they tweak the lines. We see them all the time, go back and forth from having Draisaitl and McDavid on the same line. They don't have the matchups with the Panthers having last change at the home game in Game 4 coming up. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of tweak the lines as you go. You need steady defensive play. You need better from Evan Bouchard. And hopefully a guy like Matthias Ekholm can help him get his series back on track. But I think the Oilers, when you look at them, they're 3-2 following a loss this postseason. And the one that comes to mind, this is a different scenario because the Panthers are so much better of a team than the LA Kings. But remember, the LA Kings led the first round series 2-0 on Edmonton. And then Edmonton won 4 straight come from behind victories in that series to kind of quickly change the tide. So that's what Edmonton is going to need to do. Watch out for Edmonton on the live line if they fall behind in game number 4, because they've done it before this postseason and won in rallying fashion many times.
Pete, final 30 seconds of this segment. Pete will join us in our following segment as well. The odds makers still expecting this Stanley Cup final to go the distance and to see 7 games. Does Pete Jensen anticipate the same?
I do think it'll go at least 6. My pick was Edmonton in 6. Interesting that they think it's going to go 7, and then the price has ballooned for Edmonton. So maybe this is a time to consider the Edmonton Oilers. I don't know that you're going to get a better price on the Oilers with them still they're only trailing by 1 game. So things change a lot, but we know the Edmonton Oilers can rally at least in 1 individual game.
More with Pete next.
Hey sports fans, here's a tip to keep in mind the next time you make your betting picks. According to research, home field advantage is no joke, especially in those playoffs. In the NBA and the NFL postseason, the home team typically has a 64% shot at victory. Now, go get lucky. See you in Las Vegas. Let's get lucky.
I got a feeling Pittsburgh's going to the Super Bowl. I got a feeling there is no chance they're going to the Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. I'm just kidding.
They're still not expected to have over 8.5 wins. They're still not expected to have a winning record. Now, I know things could change for the next 24 hours. I get that. But everyone expected Aaron Rodgers to sign with him. He's going to sign with him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on SportsGrid.
Plenty of takeaways from Yankees-Dodgers where LA sent the message on Saturday, and the only way the Yankees could salvage it was somehow beating Yamamoto, and they did.
You're staring a sweep in the face. And after losing the World Series, knowing what the opponent is, you know what the narrative would have been on Sunday Night Monday. Oh, Yankees get swept by the Dodgers.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid. The game is on. The stakes are high. But the action isn't just on the field.
Rearranging that roof. Get it inside!
SportsGrid's in-game live. Your ultimate second screen experience.
A 15.5-point live line.
Every prop, every play. every day.
Anything can happen. That's complete chaos.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Pete Jensen is back with us for a second consecutive segment as we continue to break down the 2025 Stanley Cup Final live right here on the Early Line. Pete, as we take a look at the Conn Smythe odds, with the Florida Panthers winning in dominant fashion in Game 3, a 5-goal margin 6-1 to open up a 2-1 series lead, we also have a shift in who is the favorite to win that playoff MVP hardware. It is now Florida's Sam Bennett, who, as Pete alluded to earlier, has an NHL best 14 goals scored throughout this Stanley Cup postseason run and has scored in all 3 games, 4 in total so far here in the Cup final. Sam Bennett moves in front of Connor McDavid. You've got Brad Marchand at a 4-1 number, and the netminder for Florida, Sergei Bobrovsky, at a plus 550 price. Pete, if you had to pick one right now, would it be the favorite in Sam Bennett, or would you look to somebody else in this Cup final?
I mean, I was looking at Marchand going into the series and, pretty much saying that he has been their most consistent goal scorer this postseason and in the clutch as well. He's got 2 overtime goals this postseason. And just that narrative of him joining the team at the trade deadline, having won a cup earlier in his career, much earlier in 2011. And then now with him matching what Bennett has done to this point with 4 goals in 3 cup final games, I still think there's a glimmer on Brad Marchand. And I feel like the narrative could support him wholeheartedly. And they're both, it's really interesting. Marchand and Bennett are both kind of hard-nosed players that bring some physicality. They both have an edge to them. Some fans, and whether it's media voting on the award or whatever, may have mixed opinions on each of those individual players, but it's going to be a heated debate, and especially considering Florida didn't get the Conn Smythe winner on their own team last year. Like, this is a big opportunity for all these guys to step up over the course of the series. But right now, it's interesting to see how both of those guys have skyrocketed on the odds board, not only since last round or beginning of this round, but just since Game 2. It feels like they both, it's crazy, they both jumped, at least one of them's jumped McDavid, and Marchand's right behind. I would lean towards Marchand, though.
Yeah, we look at those price points. Let's just say, because the series isn't over by any stretch. It's 2-1, ultra impressive there for the Florida Panthers, obviously. But as we take a look now, we're saying, all right, can Edmonton still get back into this? Because the thought process is if Edmonton does get back in, Pete, it's going to be Connor McDavid at a plus 240 price on the Conn Smythe. He didn't have a point last night. Leon Draisaitl still with multiple goals in the series, now sits at an 11-1 price. Is there anything that you're looking from an Oiler perspective outside of Connor McDavid?
I mean, Stuart Skinner needs to be better. Even if he is better and they come back and win it, I don't know that he's going to win the Conn Smythe, but he's got to be better than what was a 783 save percentage, 5 goals allowed on 23 shots faced in Game 3 in the road loss. Interesting for McDavid, no goals in the first 3 games of the series. He does have 5 assists, but so does someone like Nate Schmidt, who's a secondary defenseman for the Florida Panthers. So Connor McDavid certainly needs much more to win this award in defeat like he did last year. But it's the same type of thing as the series price for Edmonton right now. You could probably just take McDavid to win. You're maybe not going to get any better odds than right now to take McDavid to win this thing if you feel like the Oilers are going to respond. And remember, if they do respond in Game 4, they got 5 and 7 at home, and things change very quickly. Heading up north again for Edmonton. So, I'm not ruling out at all Connor McDavid scoring a couple goals, finishing with, 10, 11, 12 points in the series, and being at the top of the list when it's all said and done once again, like last year.
which makes game number 4, Pete, on Thursday, oh so critical for the rest of this Stanley Cup final. In Sunrise, Thursday night, Florida, a -154 home money line favorite as of this moment. The odds even expecting more out of the Panthers. Final 30 seconds of this segment. Pete, what do you expect for game number 4 on Thursday?
I expect a little bit closer of a game. I expect some topsy-turvy moments and, some lead changes maybe. I don't think that that last game was indicative of what Edmonton is going to be the rest of the series. I don't see them going quietly if they do lose this series. They've been through a lot to get back here, and there's a lot of motivation on that side of the ice. So, yeah, I would expect a nice response in game 4. Even, again, you can go to the 3-way money line if you think they might be more competitive, force overtime, and maybe still lose. We've seen 2 of the first 3 games go to overtime so far, so it's a good trend.
Pete, love the look. Hour number 3 next.